Happy Thoughtfully Fit Thursday from the Verona Quarry. I'm Darcy Loma. I'm out doing my open water swim today, and it dawned on me that I now can sight really effectively in an open water. So when you're swimming in a lake, you don't have the lane lines like you do in a pool, and you don't have the flags and the different things that so you know where you're going straight. And when I first started doing triathlons, I would look at my race afterwards and I could see the GPS of my swim in the lake, and I was all over the place. Obviously, the fastest way in a race is to go from point A to point B to point C to, right? Oftentimes it's kind of like a triangle in a race. And so I started to focus on sighting, figuring out, okay, why am I not swimming straight? And so I started to sight more often. So instead of every 6 strokes, I would sight every 2, which was not very efficient because I was constantly having my head above the water. Did that for a few races, it didn't help. So then I thought, okay, maybe I need to, I tried all sorts of stuff. Long story short, I finally went to my coach and asked her, and she said, well, Darcy, your right arm is weaker than your left arm. So every time you're swimming, you swim just a little bit more power on that left arm. So then by the time you look up in sight, you have to correct to come back because you're getting off sight. That was a total blind spot for me. I had no idea, right? I was trying all these other things to correct it. And all of a sudden when she helped me, now it did still take some training and practice to get my strokes to be the same. But now, today I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm pretty much swimming straight. Well, I wanted to share that story because I was working with a client recently who was in coaching. He's a manager. And he said, Darcy, I cannot figure out why my team does not participate in our team meetings. I'll ask questions and it's silence and nobody will share. And I know they're really smart and they have insights and ideas. And so he said, I've tried everything. I thought maybe the meetings are too long and they're getting low energy. So I shortened the meetings. And then I thought, well, maybe they need time to think in advance. And if I spring something on them, they haven't thought about it. So I sent agendas in advance. Nothing seemed to help. So in the coaching, he had a new awareness that he said, well, you know what? I think I'm going to ask Joe. So he went to Joe one-on-one and said, Joe, I'm wondering if you give me some insights and some thoughts, because I don't know, why does nobody participate when I ask questions in the meetings? And Joe kind of looked at him and said, do you really want to know? He's like, yeah, I really want to know. Do you have an idea? Well, I have a hunch. Yeah, what? Tell me. He's like, well, when you ask questions, you kind of jump all over people and shut them down before they even finish. I do not do that, he said. No, I don't. And Joe looked at him and he said, you're kind of doing it right now. That was just the insight that my client needed. It was his blind spot. He had no idea that his default was to come in, and even though he wanted to hear people's opinions, they'd say something, he was like, well, we don't have the budget for that, or we tried that 10 years ago, or that's not going to work. And so people learned not to share. When he'd ask a question, they just learned to be quiet because it's embarrassing to have him shut them down. So this was a new awareness that my client had that he started to work on. That he started to, and he brought it up in a meeting and he said, hey, I've got some new insights and I'm sorry, that's not the kind of a leader that I want to be. I'm going to work really hard when I ask a question to be silent and to just listen. And he gave everybody a red flag and he said, if at any time anybody is answering a question and I cut them off, I jump in, I criticize, I get defensive, anybody gets to raise the red flag. And it became kind of playful and a little bit of a joke, where first they're doing it in Zoom and now that they're back in person, somebody would raise a red flag or throw the flag on the table. And it gave my client this awareness that he had, that he needed to be quiet and just listen. So I invite you today to be thinking about, what are your blind spots? Where do you have a place where you're stuck and you can't figure it out? Go and get some feedback and invite someone to give you some insights, because that's the definition of a blind spot, right? When you're driving and there's somebody in your blind spot, you can't see them. You have to have a mirror, somebody mirroring back to you to give you some insights and some reflection so that you can learn and grow. Thank you so much for joining me today, everybody. I'm Darcy Loma. Have a great week.